It's crossover Thursday on the LockedOn Giants, LockedOn Eagles podcast. Louie DiBiase of LockedOn Eagles joins me as we break down the key storylines, the matchups, and the predictions ahead of the Week 18 regular season finale, New York Giants and Philadelphia Eagles. That's coming your way next.
You are Locked On Giants, your daily New York Giants podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for making Locked On Eagles and Locked On Giants your first listen each and every day. It's Crossover Thursday, and it's brought to you by Prize Picks. Prize Picks is daily fantasy made easy. Pick 2 to 5 players, and if they score more or less than their Prize Picks projection, going up to 10 times your money on your entry, first-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with the promo code LOCKEDON. That's prizepicks.com, promo code LOCKEDON. I'm Louie DiBiase, host of the Locked On Eagles podcast, joined by Patricia Traina of Locked On Giants. Patricia, how's it going today? Our first time doing crossover this year. You did it with Gino a few weeks ago, and it's kind of a crazy game, but I feel like for different reasons than maybe we would have predicted even a month ago.
Yeah, this is a very unusual game, as you mentioned. I mean, the Eagles have a lot to gain. The Giants, on the other hand, they're basically set. They've got a playoff berth. They're going in, whether they win or lose, it's not going to change anything. You know, the only thing the Giants, you could say have to play for is spoiling the Eagles' party. So
that's right. Absolutely. And that's the crazy thing, Patricia, is if you would have predicted a month ago, the Eagles would be the team that has to play their starters, and the Giants are the ones that might be heading into this game with all backups, I would have said you're crazy. And I think most people would still rather be in Philadelphia situation where you can have the opportunity to clinch a number 1 seed and the division title. But yeah, the Giants seem like they're locked in that 6th seed, and the Eagles have lost 2 games straight and made it really difficult on themselves where no, they can't afford to rest their starters even against the Giants backups because they got to get this win so they don't potentially have to go on the road in the wild card round as opposed to just having 2 games at home to get to the Super Bowl. It's just a crazy turn in the NFL. And, now they're probably going to have to play Jalen Hurts, and I'm not even sure if he's at 100% with his shoulder injury.
Yeah, definitely going to be an interesting decision, an interesting week, how things unfold. I mean, we still don't know what the Giants are going to do as far as their starters. I mean, Brian Daboll is keeping that close to the vest. I have some theories on that, which, of course, we'll talk about as we get into the show. But, the Giants, I think, they owe the Eagles one from a couple of years ago. I mean, granted, everybody, all the players and key figures from that year no longer with the teams, but still, the Giants, that rivalry that exists, and especially after the Eagles blew the Giants out of the water in week 14, there's probably some motivation for the Giants in this one.
For sure. Patricia, I feel like if this was Joe Judge as the head coach, we know how upset they were about that 2020 tank job in week 17. If it was Joe Judge, maybe they do play their starters, but it's a new coaching staff. And like we said, the Giants are kind of locked in there at that 6th seed. Do you believe that they're going to play starters at all in this game? Like, should Eagles fans expect Daniel Jones, Saquon Barkley, or should we look for Tyrod Taylor under center?
I think you're going to see a mix. I think what the Giants are going to do is if a guy has had a heavy workload since the bye, he may sit. If a guy is banged up, like a Leonard Williams, for example, or an Azeez Ojulari, they will probably sit. As far as the starters go, Brian Daboll has always said he wants to win, regardless. He wants to win, whether it's a preseason game, a meaningless game, whatever the case may be, he wants to win. So I think what they're going to probably do is they're going to play the starters and the key players, see how the game unfolds a little bit. So if, say, by halftime it's a blowout, then you start pulling guys, kind of like what they did last week against the Colts. They pulled guys once the game was comfortably in the books. The other thing that the Giants might do is they might say, okay, you know what? We haven't played certain guys on our bench for a while now. So what we're going to do is we're going to put maybe like Daniel Jones on a pitch count. Maybe we put Saquon Barkley on a pitch count, and we get the backups some playing time because these guys haven't really played a whole lot of snaps. So let's get them some live snaps now and have them ready should we need them in the playoffs.
Absolutely. And then when you look at for the Eagles, head coach Nick Sirianni said on Wednesday that Jalen Hurts still day to day, not 100% sure if he is going to play on Sunday, although it sounded like he was close against New Orleans. And really, Patricia, this injury hasn't been at 100% for a few weeks, but if the Eagles were in a dire need for this win to make the postseason, I think, he'd be guaranteed to play. And if they would have won last week, you can guarantee he wouldn't be playing. But I think you should expect Jalen Hurts under center for the Eagles because they cannot afford to go from the number 1 seed that, like I said, just needs 2 home wins to get to a Super Bowl to potentially, if they lose this game against the Giants somehow, let's say Tyrod Taylor pulls off the upset and the Dallas Cowboys beat Washington, who has nothing to play for anymore since they last week got eliminated from playoff contention. The Eagles would be from the best team in the NFL all year to suddenly being the 5 seed on the road heading to Tampa Bay. That's the reality they face. So they're going to play Jalen Hurts. It sounds like Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, their star safety who's led the NFL in interceptions this year, was activated to the practice window off IR. He could play in this game. Josh Sweat not expected to play though. But overall, they're going to have to play all their starters, which is definitely unfortunate.
Yeah, but listen, this is how it kind of rolls. I mean, it is unusual. You would have thought that the Eagles would have had it wrapped up by now, but ever since Jalen Hurts and that shoulder injury popped up, the Eagles have lost their last 2 without him. So, I know Nick Sirianni hasn't made any decisions as we record this about Jalen Hurts.
Yep.
I would be stunned if he's not playing, even if he's, I don't know what percentage. If he's like 80%, that's better than nothing. I don't think Sirianni puts the scheme at risk. And if Jalen Hurts at 80% gives them a better chance of winning than another quarterback at 100%, I got to think he's going to go with it. But, maybe play it a little bit smart. Maybe get the running game more involved or,
right.
Be
careful. And ideally, Patricia, you kind of talked about maybe if Daniel Jones or Saquon Barkley, some starters run a pitch count, kind of see how the game's going, right? If it's a blowout, maybe pull them and play some backups. I feel like the Eagles are going to approach this game the same way where ideally they're up by multiple scores and you're not having Jalen Hurts play all 4 quarters throughout this entire game and risk potential injury for the playoffs, further injuring that shoulder. So I think ideally for the Eagles too, they get off to a fast start like they did week 14, get enough of a cushion to potentially put Gardner Minshew in and some other backups. But, that's the reality they face right now is that they kind of have to play that by ear because they haven't gotten these last 2 wins. Patricia, before we get into matchups, I want to ask you too, just about the current vibe around, the New York Giants fan base, because it's a really interesting dynamic right now with this team, right? I mean, you're a playoff team for the first time in a long time. You have a potential coach of the year candidate in Brian Daboll, who has elevated this roster to heights I didn't predict and most in the NFL circles did not predict. But at the same time, I'm curious, like what fans think about the ceiling of this team, this year and long term. Do they feel like this is the start of, potentially becoming maybe what Philadelphia has, like the Eagles of 2021, where it's a wild card team that starts this new era? Or do they feel like maybe this is kind of a mirage and they're going to still need long-term changes to the roster at quarterback and other spots? What's kind of the vibe right now around the state of this team?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people, like you said, are surprised at what the Giants were able to do because they came into this season with a lousy salary cap situation and some roster holes, which unfortunately have gotten worse. Receiver is an absolute mess. You can argue that the depth at cornerback is not really stable. You can certainly point to the inside linebacker group as being kind of a mess as well. So a lot of people didn't think that the Giants, would be in this position. I mean, I thought that they would win a few more games than they did last year, but I certainly wouldn't have said playoffs. I think I predicted 8-9 for their final record. That being said, you look at what the Giants have done this year. All right. So they have won the games they're supposed to win. Early in the season, that week 3 loss to Dallas, they were basically competitive till the very end. They haven't really been blown out except for, the game against the Eagles and really the game against the Lions. So all this with a roster that's not complete. So imagine what this team can do if they have better receivers, if they have better inside linebackers and better cornerbacks, if they cut down on the injuries that they've had. Just imagine what they could do. So to answer your question, the atmosphere, the vibe is very high. There's a lot of enthusiastic and encouraged Giant fans. Now, the
Sure.
Giants are going to have some decisions to make in the offseason. Obviously, Saquon Barkley is a free agent. Daniel Jones is a free agent. There are a few other guys that they probably would like to have back, like Julian Love, for example. But the arrow is finally pointing in the right direction for this Giants team, which, by the way, has not won in Philadelphia since week 8 of 2013. I think that was the
Yeah.
last time they won. They would love nothing better than to see how far the team has come in this week, I think, because like I said, a few weeks ago, the Eagles blew their doors off. So how much have they improved? The Giants have been playing better football these last few weeks. Probably should have been 3-0. They're 2-1 because of that walk-off field goal against Minnesota. But this, people are excited.
Yeah, that's great to hear, for Giants fans for sure. We're going to get into a little deeper into this matchup, Patricia, coming up next. Some matchups to watch for Eagles Giants. It's Sunday at 4:25 at Lincoln Financial Field. The Eagles needing this win to clinch the 1 seed in the division. The Giants sitting tight there at that 6 seed in the NFC playoffs. Guys, today's edition of Crossover Thursday of LockedOn Eagles and LockedOn Giants is brought to you by BetOnline, the official sportsbook of the LockedOn Podcast Network, and it's your number one source for sports betting information, stats, news, and analysis. Right now, the Eagles are at -14 for this game. So if you feel like the Giants could pull off the upset, maybe bet on that +14, New York to cover. Get all the latest odds and trends for the NFL and every professional sport and amateur sport out there at betonline.net. Pro football, of course, the playoffs coming up. College bowl season. We got the national championship soon with Georgia and TCU, the NBA, soccer, MMA, combat sports, you name it, all available at BetOnline. If you love sports podcasts as well, like this one, you can even find those at BetOnline as well. They're always the fastest and easiest way to get your betting information. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends in action, because BetOnline is where the game starts. We thank you so much for making LockedOn Eagles and LockedOn Giants your first listen each and every day. It's a crossover Thursday edition of the show. Guys, also make sure to subscribe to the LockedOn NFL podcast and get daily conversations on the biggest NFL stories, plus in-depth analysis on the biggest games with NFL key predictions every Friday and Monday. Local insiders cover the weekend with game-to-game episodes. LockedOn NFL available on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. So, Patricia, let's dive a little into some matchups here with this Week 18 matchup between the Eagles and Giants. And it's a little tougher to discuss matchups because we don't really know who's going to play with the Eagles. Is Jalen Hurts going to play? Is Jack Driscoll going to be the right tackle, or are they going to move Jordan Mailata? Is Chauncey Gardner-Johnson going to play? And then with the Giants, they don't really have much to play for outside of playing spoiler. So are they going to play Daniel Jones, Saquon Barkley? So it's a little tougher to talk matchups, but for you, if there's one key matchup to this game that comes to mind, is there something that could really turn the tide of this result?
I think it's going to be in the pit. I mean, it all
Yeah,
starts in the pit. Right now, I can't say for sure if Leonard Williams is going to play for the Giants on the defensive
right.
line. I don't know if they're going to play Dexter Lawrence. Maybe they rest him because he's had a heavy workload. But I do know in the first meeting earlier this year, the Eagles dominated the Giants in the pit, and not just their offensive line versus the Giants' defensive line, but you can flip that around. And I think if the Giants want to have any chance of keeping this close, if not winning, they've got to win the battle in the pit on both sides of the ball. And if they
Yeah.
don't do that, then it's going to be another long afternoon/evening for the Giants. And you're right. I can't speak to specific players because we don't know who's going to play, but for me, it starts in the pit.
I totally agree. And the Eagles this year have had elite trench play on both sides of the ball. They've had probably the best combination of offensive linemen and defensive linemen this year. But the past 2 weeks, Patricia, it's been a little bit different. The pass rush has still been incredible. Last week, they had another 6-sack performance. They've had at least 6 sacks in 5 games. That's an NFL record. Another record they set last week. They now have 4 players with at least 10 sacks in a season. No team's ever done that. They're also only 5 sacks away from breaking the all-time single-season record of the 85 Bears at 72. So they need 4 this week to tie, 5 to break it. So the pass rush has been unstoppable, and that was really the only reason you had a chance in that second half last week to beat the Saints, is because Hassan Reddick went off. So did Brandon Graham and Fletcher Cox and Javon Hargrave. The other side of the trenches, though, is where I get a little more concerned. Even if the Giants don't play all their starters, the 4/5 of the line, I'm confident in, but that right tackle spot now without Lane Johnson, it looked shaky last week with Jack Driscoll. I mean, of course, he's going up against Cam Jordan, but Driscoll is a backup as well in his own right. And if he's not protecting Jalen Hurts or Gardner Minshew, whoever the quarterback is, that can get any offense out of rhythm as it did last week. So I totally agree. I feel like trench play, backups or starters, going to be very important. I'm very confident in the Eagles defensive line getting to Tyrod or Jones, but when it comes to the offensive line, I'm still a little bit nervous about that right tackle spot. So going to have to monitor that as we move forward.
Yeah, it boils down to the bits. That's simple. I mean,
Yeah,
one guy that I do know will probably play for the Giants is going to be Kayvon Thibodeau. And, you look at
exactly.
his stats and you say, okay, he hasn't done a whole lot. Yeah, he has done a whole lot. He's been disruptive. He's kind of opened things up for other guys to make plays.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a matchup, depending on where they decide to line him up.
Patricia, Gino's a diehard Oregon fan, so you don't have to hype up
Yes.
Thibodeau too much. He knows how good he is.
Yeah, exactly. But that's certainly something, if I'm the Eagles, I would maybe want to, hone in on and just make sure that where he is, because he is really playing with confidence. He's, the old saying, playing with your hair on fire. And he's just been really, really good for the Giants, even though the numbers aren't there. He doesn't have Aiden Hutchinson numbers, but he has made an impact with his presence and forced teams to kind of start paying more attention to him.
Right, for sure. And then Patricia, I feel like too, you look at who the Giants' backup quarterback is, Tyrod Taylor. I don't think that's an ideal backup to play because of his ability to extend plays with his legs outside of structure. Tyrod's got a pretty good arm too. Taylor can push the ball down the field. Of course, you mentioned the receivers, not very strong to begin with, even with starters in New York. The backups can't imagine going to be much better going up against Darius Slay and James Bradbury. But if Tyrod does find a way, if he's playing over Jones, to evade that pass rush and extends plays, that's where the Eagles could get into some trouble in this game. So I don't think Tyrod's an ideal backup to play. And, you kind of look at a playoff team over the last 5 years that's kind of similar to this Giants team. I'd say the 2017 Buffalo Bills that Tyrod led surprisingly to the playoffs. It was another team that you look at the roster and you're like, not really sure how they did that. It was a great coaching job, and they had a quarterback that was mobile that could elevate. So that's kind of an interesting tie as well.
Yeah, I mean, the Giants haven't really pushed the ball deep down the field all that much this year. Part of that, again, is because of the receiver issue.
Right.
Part of that has been the pass protection at times has been still a little spotty, especially in the interior offensive line. So I think, the deep passing game that everybody keeps hoping to see, we might not see it till next year. The Giants got some work to do to upgrade their personnel. But as far as Tyrod Taylor, if he has to play, yeah, I would rather Daniel Jones be in there, but
Of course.
Tyrod, he can move around. He's a veteran. I know the times that he's gotten in there in garbage time and mop up duty hasn't been very sharp, but look, like I said, I think they're going to want to get him some snaps because you never know when you're going to need him in the playoffs. So how many snaps I can't sit here and tell you, because obviously it depends on how the game unfolds, but I would not be stunned if he gets in the game. I wonder if perhaps they might even bring up Davis Webb from the practice squad and get him a few snaps, almost treat this like a exhibition game in a way, just empty the bench out, so to speak, just to get as many guys as possible some snaps.
That's music to Eagles fans' ears for sure. And that's why when it comes to matchups, I feel like the Eagles are going to severely overwhelm, any matchup when it comes to superior talent. So I think that's definitely the reality. So honestly, Patricia, I feel like it's kind of like the same situation the last few weeks. The only way the Eagles lose this game is if they beat themselves, and they've been doing that. So hopefully they rebound. They definitely have to be coached better on both sides of the ball, the execution. Hopefully they'll get healthier as well, and hopefully they can get this win. They are -14 right now, according to BetOnline, for this matchup. So if you think the Giants could cover that, hammer that +14. Patricia, we'll wrap up the show coming up next right here on Crossover Thursday. It's Locked On Eagles and Locked On Giants, and today's show is brought to you by Built Bar. Looking for a delicious treat, but don't want all of the fat and calories, and you got to try a Built Bar. We just got through the holidays, and I know a lot of our goals is to eat a little healthier this year. So if you're like me, where you want to eat healthier but don't want to compromise taste, then man, we've got just the thing for you. You got to try Built Bar. With Built, healthy is actually tasty. Seriously, they're so delicious, you won't think they're good for you. Perfect for your New Year's resolution. What makes Built Bar so good? Well, for starters, they're covered in 100% real chocolate. That's right, real chocolate, and they come in some unbelievably remarkably delicious flavors. You got churro, peanut butter brownie, coconut almond. I'm not sure how Built does it, but these bars taste like a candy bar while maintaining amazing macros. And what's even better is they're healthy, only 130 calories and 4 grams of sugar with a whopping 17 grams of protein. Now you don't need to wait around to get a box. For years, we've been talking about ordering Built bars at Built.com. Now you can get them at your local Walmart or Sam's Club. That's right. Head over to your nearest Walmart today, walk to the pharmacy section, and grab yourself a box of Built bars. You can pick up a 4-bar box of cookies and cream, double chocolate, or coconut puffs. If you're close to Sam's Club, run in and grab a 13-bar box with our hit flavors, brownie batter and churro. You can thank me later. And we thank Built Bar for sponsoring the LockedOn Eagles and Giants podcast today. And we thank you guys for making LockedOn Eagles and LockedOn Giants your first listen each and every day. I'm Louie DiBiase of LockedOn Eagles, and she's Patricia Traina of LockedOn Giants. Patricia, any overall remaining thoughts you have heading into this matchup? Again, not super interesting for New York side, and I feel like for Philadelphia, it's just kind of all nerves of just get this game over with. A win, not always is a win just a win. But in this situation, a win truly just is a win, so they can have a week off, get healthier, and host a divisional round game at Lincoln Financial Field.
Yeah, I'm going to go back to the whole issue of playing the starters. And, I ran a poll recently on my Twitter account.
Yeah.
Should the Giants sit the starters? And surprisingly, it was close. I mean, most people voted yes, they should sit them.
I'm telling you, I think it's because they want to play
I
spoiler.
think
They're
it was
mad about
like
2020 still.
Yeah, I think it was like 51% to 47% or something like that. But, from my perspective, I've said it all along, and, people will go back to 2007 when Tom Coughlin famously played all his starters in a meaningless game against the New England Patriots, who at the time were undefeated. And they'll say, well, the Giants did it back in 2007. They've got to do it now. For Brian Daboll, if I'm him, the thought process is I want to see how far along my team has come. How have they improved? Because this is really the last, if you will, tune-up before the playoffs start. And you want to have an idea, okay, how far along have we come? They're getting back a lot of guys that maybe they didn't have in the first meeting. And the Eagles, despite the fact that they've lost the last 2 games, they're like the top team in the NFL. I'm not even going to say one up. I'm going to give them credit, which I'm sure I'm going to have to turn in my Giants membership card for saying that, but they are a top team in the NFL. And what better litmus test than to go against, a loaded roster. I mean, that roster, even if they played all their backups, they would probably beat most teams in the NFL and see where you stack up against them. So that's what I think is factoring into Brian Daboll's mindset as he goes about making this decision as to who's going to play, how they're going to approach it, and so forth.
Yeah, and look, I think from the Eagles side of things, obviously these last 2 weeks have not been ideal. You would have liked to have this bye week wrapped up already, so you don't even have to consider playing Jalen Hurts. You could have a whole nother 2 weeks of rest, but the reality is you do have to play this game because they have not played well these last 2 games on defense against Dallas, allowing 40 points, getting into a 13-0 hole last week against New Orleans in the first half, and then the offense just not getting anything going, some key turnovers, penalties. It's been sloppy. I feel like the coaching staffs have been too late to adjust at times, and with a backup quarterback, they've had to be better, and they haven't stepped up. But at the same time, Eagles fans, I don't think the sky is falling still. When you add, the reality you have to remember is they've been missing their MVP quarterback. And even with any elite roster without a franchise quarterback, you're going to have to overcompensate a lot. So bringing back Jalen Hurts is obviously going to make things better. And look, the offense, they put up 34 points just 2 weeks ago. And last week, the defense shut out the Saints in the second half. So even for both sides of the football, they've only really had one bad stretch for a game or two. So, I think for the majority of the season, as you mentioned, the Eagles have been the best team in the NFL. And hopefully they can remind the league of that before the playoffs and really get back on track so they can carry that momentum into the divisional round. Patricia, so I guess we'll do final predictions here for this matchup. Again, the Eagles -14, according to BetOnline. I don't want to, let's not do score predictions, but do you think the Eagles will cover that? Or do you think the Giants will cover? Or how are you feeling?
Oh, this is so hard because, again, we don't know who's going to play.
Right. It's a really tough line.
It really is. I'm going to say, I don't think the Giants are going to get their doors blown off like they did last time. I'm not saying that I think the Giants will win this game because I do know, there are probably guys that are not going to play or be on pitch counts. but I don't think the Giants are going to lose by that. I just don't see it.
Gotcha.
So I would not take that line. I would be very surprised. I mean, look, Dable wants to win. He is very, very competitive. And it doesn't matter if like I said, if it's a preseason game, regular season game with nothing to play for. What kind of message would he be sending to the team and to the fan base if he said, we're going to sit everybody and play the backups and the practice squad guys? That's not the message he sent all year long. So I don't see that starting. And like I said, the Giants have been playing a little bit better down the stretch. And that's what you want to see from your team. You want to see them start to play better when it starts to count, which is down the stretch, which the playoffs on the horizon. So I'm going to say the Eagles win, but I don't think they cover.
Gotcha. I'll say they cover. I believe they're going to play very angry. I think they're not happy about the result these last 2 weeks. And the last time the Eagles had a 2-game slump, you look at the loss against Washington, the first of the season a month ago, and then the close win they barely had against the Indianapolis Colts. They, after that, went on the best month of the season when it comes to that Green Bay matchup, Tennessee, the last game against the Giants. That was the best football, I think, though, that 3-week run that the Eagles have been on all year. So I trust this team to rebound and hold themselves accountable when things get bad. And I think they're frustrated it took this long to get the bye week. So I think they're going to win handily in this game and grab the number 1 seed. But we'll see what happens Sunday at 4:25 at Lincoln Financial Field. Eagles, Giants. We'll have a post-game show each for you after the game. Make sure to subscribe to LockedOn Eagles and LockedOn Giants on all podcast platforms and in video form as well on YouTube. And Patricia, where else can they find your stuff?
Yeah, you can also find my written work over at giantscountry.com, which is part of the Fan Nation Network, part of Sports Illustrated. So check that out. I've been doing all kinds of stories and we have features and plenty of stuff. Also on the YouTube channel, the Locked On Giants YouTube channel, I'm doing daily shorts to keep you updated on everything you need to know, all things Giants.
That's awesome. And you can follow me on Twitter at DiBiase. Got daily articles for you as well on fox43.com. But for now, we're going to sign off. Thanks so much for making Locked On Eagles and Locked On Giants your first listen each and every day. For your second listen, make sure to check out the Locked On NFL podcast, bringing you the local insights you love to the national spotlight with daily conversations on the biggest NFL stories. Locked On NFL, available on YouTube and wherever you get your podcast. For Patricia Traina, I'm Louie DiBiase signing off. Have a great day, everybody. We'll see you Sunday for Eagles Giants.